Hey everybody, welcome back to the Flow Created channel. Just wanted to give you a brief introduction. This is part 2 of a video series that I'm doing on starting your lean journey. It all starts again in the current state. We're mapping out the current state and we're really diving into the customer demand right now. So that's where we are. There'll be a few videos on customer demand, and then we'll get within the walls of our factory and start to understand that as well. So stick with us. And if you haven't seen part 1, it's linked below, and enjoy. All right, so today's video, welcome to part 2. I wanted to start out with a brief recap of the first part of this video series. Again, we're answering the question, where do I start my lean journey? Or maybe you're a new plant manager and it's your first day. And I use days arbitrarily. So it could be a day, it could be a week, it could be 6 hours, depending on how complicated your value stream is. So I'm just going to call this a recap of day 1, and then today's video will be day 2. So yesterday, what we reviewed was the customer demand data in aggregate. We lumped all of the customers together, and I'm going to just review a little bit of that with you guys because I want to make sure that the conclusions that you can draw from that data kind of stand out a little bit better. So here we are taking a look at summary of, remember I was talking about invoiced sales. So one thing I want to make clear, when I talk about invoiced sales, I'm really talking about invoiced sales in units. And I didn't specify that, but I wanted it to be very clear. A lot of times people are stuck on dollars, which again, that's important. We're here to make money. But you've got to get into the quantities of unit sales. If you're selling liquids in kilograms, or you're selling widgets, or you're selling whatever it is, but we need to get into unit sales. So all of this data is unit sales. And what we kind of uncovered yesterday with this modified or fictitious company was that our average sales per day are about 27,000 units, and our standard deviation is around 18,000. Our average number of orders that we process per day is 34, with a standard deviation of 13. And then we also talked about booked sales. So when the customers place an order and they have a request state, what does the graph of request state look like? And what we were trying to do was to get a feel for what is the variability of demand without some of maybe the influences of the factory itself. Now, that said, even booked sales will have those influences, plus they'll have any influences and outside things from customer problems related to supply chain, etc. But that said, we looked at average bookings per day, which was about 24,000 kilograms compared to about 27,000 kilograms being sold. So that's interesting there, that difference. So why would we have fewer booked sales on average than sold? You could be in a time of declining sales, which in this example we are. Plus, when you look at booked data and you plot all the booked sales, remember, it's going to go out into the future from, 3, 5, 7, 12 weeks. Who knows how far it's going to go out. Those days aren't completely sold yet. So when you divide by the number of days for which you have bookings, it automatically or artificially lowers that daily number. So you could analyze it by keeping the threshold the same if you choose or not. But it certainly stands to reason that your average booked sales per day would be lower than your average invoiced sales in units per day. It passes my smell check for sure. But one thing that stood out from yesterday's data that I didn't make a big deal of was that the standard deviation for both are very, very similar. You can see the standard deviation for booked sales is around 18,002. And the standard deviation for invoiced sales in units is again about 18,000, 18,600. So it's they're really similar, which is good. Like that's where you kind of want to be. It's passing the smell check, right? All right, so that was a quick review from yesterday's data. So let's talk about peeling the onion back and going a little bit deeper now into customer demand. I know there's a whole bunch of people that want to race ahead and do all the Paretos, and we're getting there. We are definitely getting there. But let's answer the questions today. Who are our customers and where are our customers, right? So we're going to take this one step at a time, peel the onion back one more layer, all right? So why is who important? Who you're selling to allows you to prioritize and make decisions relative to how you want to set up your value stream in the future. So if you have customers that are a huge portion of your business, you obviously really want to know that. You want to be able to service that customer because they're such a large portion of your demand. And you want to be able to service them efficiently and quickly and easily, right? Because if we're here to make money and that customer gives us the most money, or at least gives us the most business in units, which typically aligns with the most amount of money, then we need to know that. We need to know who our biggest customers are. And the other thing we want to answer is, where are our customers? Where are they, right? So that's vital as well. Like, where are we shipping to? How do we have to prepare shipments, right? It's much different if you're in operations when shipping to a local client, maybe daily, hourly, weekly, than it is shipping to Uruguay, for instance, that has to go by sea freight. It's a completely different animal, right? So we want to know, first of all, who are our customers? Who are the big players? How many customers do we ship to? And we want to figure out, where are they and what kind of a business do we have? Are we local? Are we regional? Are we international? What does that look like? So let's get into the numbers here of the fictitious company. So again, straightforward. You've got the data already. You've got that 1 year of sales. You start with creating your Pareto chart. This is not an Excel tutorial. You know how to create a Pareto chart, but you'll see here, this is 357 unique customers in 1 year of business just dropped into a Pareto chart after a pivot table. Scrolling down, a little bit more detail here. 80% of unit sales is from 16 customers, right? So 16 of the 357 customers make up 80% of our total sales in units. That's really important. That's really important. Listen, 10% is 35 customers and 20% is 70 customers. So the Pareto rule of 20% of your X is usually 80% of your Y. It's not even following here. In this case, 80% of our unit sales is from 16 customers. I really want to know who those 16 customers are. And overall, 95% of our unit sales is from 48 customers. So just over 10% of our total customer base makes up 95% of our unit sales. That is also really important. And if you take a look at this top Pareto chart here, you'll see it. I mean, it's a huge long tail, right? So immediately you're starting to get a flavor of our customers now. You know we're shipping around 27,000 units a day. You know 16 customers are 80% of that, typically on a day or a week or a month, right? We have a huge long tail of customers of 357 unique ones, right? Who are buying lots of little things. So it's almost like I'm starting to get a flavor of this company, right? I'm starting to see, well, we've got a handful of customers that are buying most of our stuff in units, and then we've got a whole bunch of customers that are buying lots of little things in small quantities. And quite often what we see is, well, let's just push all that stuff down the same value stream and handle it the same way. And we'll handle a $14 order the same as we'll handle a $56,000 order and put it through the same processes. And, you know, right now, when I look at this data, my wheels are turning. Like, how are we supposed to be efficient here? Do we handle these smaller orders any differently? Let's just take a look now of where our customers are. And in this case, 82% of our customers are in the United States. That doesn't necessarily mean they're close, but it's in the US, which is pretty good. You want to ask these questions. you want to ask, okay, what percentage of our sales are international before you show the data and get the perception of everybody. You want to ask the question, how much time do we spend dealing with international shipments versus domestic shipments, right? And it's been my experience that most of the time, not only in operations and the guys on the floor who are preparing the shipments and getting them ready and containers, let's say, and all that, most of our time is spent doing international stuff, and most of the people all day are dealing with problems regarding international shipments, right? So 18%, it's there. It's a significant portion of our business. We got to understand what those challenges are. And as I said, not only is it a big time consumer of operations staff, it's also a huge time consumer of customer service as well, right? So are we handling American or domestic shipments the same as we're handling international shipments? Do they just pump down the same value stream? Or do we have some sort of separate paths, right? These are the questions that are bubbling up now in my mind. A lot of companies also divide things up into regions. I did that just as an example. North and South America, Eurasia, APAC, Middle East, Africa. You might have regional business. And this is really important when you're in the consumer goods area too. You're going to slice and dice the world, based on geographic locations, global geographic locations. Not so important for this particular example, but can be very important, again, if you're in consumer goods. So again, we've looked at the customer demand data in aggregate. We got a feel for how much stuff is moving. We know about 27,000 units are moving per day. We know we have a pretty high standard deviation of 18,000 confirmed by bookings as well. And we know that that's, relative to the amount of sales that we're pushing out a day, when you have a standard deviation that big, well, yeah, there's a lot of, you can see this blue line here. That's difficult to process, right? So, and then moving on to who our customers are, 357 unique customers. 16 of them are the most important, but are buying 80% of our stuff. 16 are buying 80% of our stuff in this case. And this is real customer data, which is why I had to cover this up. And 95% of our sales are from 48 different customers, right? So we have a really long tail. We have a lot of small shipments going out to small customers. It looks like this company kind of really likes to say yes. They like to pride themselves on being able to service any type of customer. And that's, but listen, if that's in their DNA, awesome. But that doesn't mean we're processing it correctly and we're handling it right? So I'm starting to get these questions like, it seems like we've got lots of big orders, which are really driving our volume, and lots of tiny orders. And I want to understand more about how we process those in the future. Geographical breakdowns, self-explanatory, but you're going to need that. All right, day 2 is in the books. We talked about customer demand in aggregate, the what, if you will. We talked about who the customers are, got loads of data on that and segregated them. We talked about where the customers are, international splits, domestic business, all of that stuff. And tomorrow, looking ahead, day 3 is going to be dealing with the consumer a little bit. They're going to enter into the picture, because if it wasn't for the consumer, we wouldn't have demand. So how does that demand go upstream through the channel and get to our factory, right? So tomorrow we're going to talk a little bit about channels, and we're going to talk more in pretty much the final day of dealing with customer demand. And if you're feeling a little impatient, that's good. That's where we need to be. Patience now pays off. Being patient in the current state is the hardest thing about the first 90 days or the first 1 or 2 months in the job. So be patient, understand everything you can about demand, and all of that information will serve you well later. So until tomorrow, thanks for joining us on this journey. Remember, like, subscribe, and if you want any more information, give a comment below, and we'll get a dialogue going. So remember, don't be a 5S'er, create flow.